What's going on, y'all? Welcoming you into another episode of the Real Ones podcast, brought to you by Project Philo. I'm your host, Ben Moscow, and today we are joined by one half of Disco Vietnam,
Eye to eye, Disco Vietnam.
Barry Schwartz.
What's up? What's up?
How's the summer been for you?
Summer's been pretty great. All the music that we've been making together, all the opportunities my brother's been getting to mix. It's been really exciting, and it's been really validating to see all the beats that I've made actually turn into songs.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, this is Disco Vietnam is fundamentally, both you and Kenny Schwartz.
Hmm.
You mentioned on that most recent appearance on Call Out Culture, right? You're very invested like in his success as well and making sure that he
Hmm.
gets his placements and everything. So,
Yeah.
why is that so important to you?
My brother and I have a very special musical bond that goes back a long, long time.
Mhm.
I'm making beats now, and he's doing mixing engineering, but like 15 years ago, we were in a band together. I was a guitarist and the singer of Disco Vietnam, and Kenny was my drummer. And, music has always been something that I've loved doing and I'm passionate about, and I've always done it. But my brother has really made it his career. And he flew out to LA as just a drummer, a great
Mhm.
one, a jazz drummer. And he turned himself into all these other things: a recording engineer, a mixing engineer, a bassist. And it's really exciting to see. So anything that I do, I'm really fortunate that my brother will do with me if I'm lucky, and that's the validating part for me, that somehow my brother and I get to collaborate again.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Hmm.
There's definitely like a longer, as you mentioned, you're on the production side, used to do
Hmm.
the singing as well for Disco Vietnam. But yeah, you're
Yeah, those are
you're
the days.
yeah, so yeah, you're listed, right now on Bandcamp as being like the rock and roll band, but also like doing the hip hop instrumentals and stuff.
Hmm.
So you kind of get two very, very different sides. But yeah, were you
Right.
influenced, as a kid, especially like to make both of those types of
I don't know.
music?
I don't really know how that happened. Actually, I do. I do. Um, well, just growing up with my family, my dad's a big classic rock guy.
Hmm.
My brother and I were just raised on Springsteen and the Beatles. And but when I was 11 years old, Enter the Wu Tang came out,
Mm.
36 Chambers, and that was like, what am I? I'm in the fifth grade, and so that's around the time where you start thinking, my dad likes Bruce Springsteen. What do I like?
Right.
And I like that. But I've always loved rock and roll. I've always followed rock and roll. I have a whole side of myself that knows how to do that. I love Oasis. I love Radiohead. I love the Knack and Squeeze. And
Hmm.
those influences have to go somewhere. And my brother and I have always listened to the same stuff. He's got a little more of a harder edge, but we were able to come up with some like a type of indie rock that we were excited to play. And while I was doing that, you can't rehearse every day, and you can't practice every day, and you can't play shows or write a new song every day. But I've always loved making beats, and I've always um, enjoyed sampling and
Yeah.
digging. And I just love listening to music in general. So it was just more of an excuse to listen to a lot of music. And I ended up making some friends uh, a few towns over, and they were rappers. And I got to have that adventure too, and like do the thing where you're driving around on the Long Island Expressway with blunts, playing your instrumentals while your boys are in the back seat freestyling. But they're really good.
Yeah.
They're really good at this. It's not the same as like when you were in high school. And we got to go to the studio and do that. And so I was living like a parallel creative life when my band was really doing stuff. And then about 6 years ago, my brother got married. He moved to California, and I had to kind of pick up the pieces of like, how do I make music without my brother behind me?
Yeah.
And I kind of was like, all right, maybe I'll go back to making beats and just really dedicate myself to that. And a few years later, it's starting to bear fruit.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
definitely a big summer with obviously the placements on Real
Yeah,
Late,
yeah, that was
as
awesome.
well as this new Zilla record,
Hmm.
which you went in depth on his show. You have three credits
Hmm.
on this Rosenberg album: Hallways, Wu Generation, and Snake Eyes as well.
Uh-huh.
Obviously big names on these beats. That's got to
Yeah,
be
that's
a
pretty
great
wild.
feeling. I mean, Roc Marci is one of, even if
Hmm.
not critically acclaimed, I still think for a lot of hip hop purists, one of the best out right now. The second generation Wu folks, huge sort of maybe not even like shoes to fill. I don't know if I
Hmm.
really see it that way, but it's like obviously there's even to refer to themselves that way is like an
Yeah,
acknowledgement of like, yeah, they're our predecessors were like really really impressive, but a solid track on there nonetheless. And then Snake
awesome.
Eyes um with Ghostface and Jim Jones. Did you have a favorite of those three?
I mean, it would have to be Hallways, just because that was one of the first ones that Rosenberg sent back to me that I was like, "What? You what? Wait, who?" Like, no, that can't be. I was very surprised by that. It was like getting one of the Infinity Stones or something.
Man.
I mean, I've been making beats a long time, and uh, I've definitely had some experiences where you get vocals back, and you're like, "That's it. That's what you're gonna do
Yeah.
on this beat that I like spend hours and hours on. That's what you're doing. Okay." And I would have like kind of a visceral reaction to it that wasn't healthy. But when he sent me the Rock Marcy vocals over my beat, it was just like, oh yeah, like there's a big difference when a superstar raps. You can hear the difference, and it elevates the music you made. And that's how I felt about it because I love that beat, but to have his voice on it, like all the beats I make are incomplete pieces of music. It's really frustrating. You have to make hundreds of beats for one of those to like slip through and someone records vocals on it. So for that person to be Rock Marcy was pretty incredible. He's very specific. That's what makes him very special. No one sounds like him, and he birthed a lot. He made a certain sound permissible, like the beat that I made uh, for Hallways. Maybe before Rock Marcy, that's not a complete beat to someone. They're like, "Where's the drums?" Or "This isn't done yet." But something about his vocals on it makes it done, and creates a whole genre of a whole type of instrumental that's like, yeah, you did it. It's good enough. Let someone else rap on it now. I appreciate that.
That one was a standout. Like
Mm-hmm.
it starts like very eerie at
Mm.
first, or I mean, stays that way throughout with the.
Yes, I got lucky with that one. That's the thing. Like all I do is sample, so I'm really at the mercy of whatever I find. And then once I find something, it's at the mercy of what I can do with it.
Yeah.
And maybe 10% of the time I do something interesting.
Do you have any thoughts on like the whole sample snitching thing? I mean, I know Rock commented
Yeah,
on
I
it.
do. I do have thoughts on that. Don't do that. Do your own research. Do your own thing. Know what you're talking about. Find out what the samples are.
Mhm.
But like, um, don't make a big deal about it. And also, don't be one of those people who makes beats to tell people what you sampled. Don't do that. Grow up. Time to grow up.
Yeah, that's
So
that
those are my thoughts.
but loud and clear.
Don't be one of those people who's like, someone should sample this. You sample it. That's it. I don't need your help. Those are my 3 rules. If I come up with another one, I'll share it later.
Of course, okay. The gems, yeah, the three principles.
I'm definitely somebody who's benefited from being able to check and see if something has already been sampled. I hate that. I don't want to sample something someone else has sampled.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to go to who sampled and just double check that, you're not, believe it or not, you're the 7th person to
Yeah.
make a song with this. So don't even bother unless you're going to do something interesting with it, which you listen to what they've done and you'll know one way or the other. So I appreciate that, but I also at the same time don't think it should be done in a destructive way. Or,
So would you say like it ruins some of the mystique?
well, all I can say is that that's what ignites the process for me, finding something.
Hmm.
So don't take that away from me. That's the best part. I don't. If I have that, I can't really go to point B. So don't fuck with point A.
We can get a little more big picture now, and like
Hmm.
what was the first connection you had with Rosenberg?
We met in college. We were friends for like coming on 20 years now. He just graduated actually, but he still had his radio show at WMUC 88.1 on campus at the
It was
University of
Maryland,
Maryland.
yeah.
Yeah. I wrote for the Diamondback. I was the editor of the entertainment section of the Diamondback.
Hmm.
So I was doing what you were doing probably.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, to a degree.
right. And one day I'd written an article in the Diamondback about a local band that had reached out to me and wanted me to write about them, and I did. That was kind of my job. But in the course of what I wrote, I took like a couple of sentences. I've learned not to do this, but I took a couple
Mhm.
sentences to maybe talk shit about a certain rap group that had been on campus for a long time and had kind of overstayed their welcome as far as I was concerned as a new student on campus and coming to my junior year. I was like,
Yeah.
yo, I'm kind of like sick of seeing you guys. You graduated a while ago, and maybe there's another crew of guys that are actually going to the school who want to like do some of these shows. And I got like a phone call the next morning from one of those guys saying he was gonna come hit me with a bat.
Yo.
I'll put his name out there. It was C's Mikes, and and I said, nah, you're a fifth grade teacher. You're not gonna do that. But Rosenberg, who's like in this scene, he heard about this and he like sent me an email like, why don't you come up to my radio show and let's talk about it? And that ain't no thing to me because the newspaper was across the hall from the radio station. So, all
Ah, yeah,
right.
there you go.
So he shows up Sunday night for his radio show, and I'm sitting there waiting for him, like just like I did for this podcast. And he walks in, and I guess he just saw a kindred spirit. He's like, "Oh, you showed up." I was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna show up. You asked me to show up. I showed up." He's like, "Okay." And he came in. I came into the room. He asked me why I said what I said. I explained it to him. We were gonna do a whole thing on the radio about it,
Yeah.
but once I explained to him my position, he was like, "Oh, okay." And then like we started IMing because it was back in the AOL Instant Messenger
Of
days.
course, of course.
And I wrote an article about him in the newspaper because I thought he was pretty awesome doing the show that he was doing and the opportunities he was already getting locally in DC,
Yeah.
working for like HFS and PGC and later XM. Things were going really well for Rosenberg. And we just stayed friends for a long time and stayed in touch. And in the years where he wasn't doing what he wanted to be doing and I wasn't doing what I wanted to be doing, we stayed friends. And when he got the opportunity of a lifetime that he'd been waiting for to work for Hot 97,
Yeah.
I was the guy that was like going to his aunt's house in Baldwin, picking him up, driving around, going to Taco Bell with him. All he was doing was the Real Late show at the time. And slowly but surely, he became the host of the morning show, and then now he's doing ESPN and he's doing WWE, and that's my boy. He's my buddy.
He's definitely somebody that I look up to a lot in that way. And like, I also have done a lot of stuff on the sports side
Mm-hmm.
with like broadcasting and stuff, to think that he
Awesome.
does both of these shows in like the same day. He goes from one to
Oh
the
my
other
God, I don't know. I mean,
multiple
I'm
hours.
lucky I get to talk to him now. Like, he's a very busy man. I'm really happy. Like, just being a part of the project for me, it's like, oh, good, I get to hang out with my friend a couple times. I will say though, just for me, I I was making these beats for years and years and years, and I never wanted to be like, hey Peter. I would never want to like impose on Peter. I got to do a beat for a hero of mine, Kev Brown, who
Yeah.
I met through Peter, and I think because I was able to do that on my own, and I was doing my own thing, just making beats every day. I got an opportunity with Kev. Peter heard about it. I felt more comfortable. He felt more comfortable with me being like, hey, here's my beats. And I sent him my beats. And then everything that happened from there was just Peter creating miracles, which is what he does.
Yeah, I'm a fantastic curator, obviously. There was one thing that came up in his interview with Dad Bod Rap Pod.
Uh-huh.
There was the conversation over like the inclusion of or the want to include like Ka on the record.
Oh, yeah.
So, he kind of described his side of the conversation of what amount of like mystique is good, right? Is it possible to have like
Yeah.
too little self promo, to the point where it's like, oh, so I wanted to hear like your side of
My
that
side?
convo.
Well, it's a little more complex than that. I've been friendly with Ka for a long time, like going
Right.
back to 2008. I heard Firehouse on the Jizza album, which was produced by Roc Marciano. This
Yeah.
was before anybody knew who they was, and I was just like astounded that there was a song on this album that was just Ka. This is a Jizza album. Why does Ka have 3 verses? Who's Ka? Who's Ka?
Yeah.
I don't understand this. And he's awesome. So what's going on here? And I posted a comment on Jeff Weiss's website, Passion of the Weiss, because he wrote a little thing about Pro Tools. And I was like, who's this guy, Ka? I got to find him. And 2 days later on my MySpace, I get a message from Ka. He goes, I hear you're looking for me. So I give him my number. He texts me. We're texting. And I'm just like, yo, man, this song you got on the Jizza record is incredible, man. I would love to talk to you about it. And I'm saying, like, I'm going to talk to you on the phone. That's fine. Or I'll come out to Brooklyn, wherever you are. I'll drive out there and I'll interview you. I don't care. And he's like, no, where are you? And I'm like, I'm in Huntington Station, Long Island. He goes, I'll come out to you. And Ka drove out to Long Island and met me at my office. And I, like, hung out with him in my office. And then we hung out in my car. And he told me so many things about his life. And we really got to spend a lot of time together. And ever since then, we've been, like, really friendly. And I always hit him up. I check for every record. And the last one's the best one he ever made. This most recent one that just came out, it's the best one he's ever made. Peter hit me up because he's doing the project, and he loves Ka too. I put him on to Ka. He would admit that.
Yeah, he did. He said we're the one.
I put everyone on a Ka. So he was like, yo, you think we get Ka on this record? Now, I know Ka is very selective. There's a reason there's no Ka guest appearances. Everybody wants Ka on their record. Everyone adores him and admires him. But only Roc Marciano seems to be able to get him. And that makes sense. And I thought it would be a little weird if I was the guy like reaching out to Ka on behalf of Peter. Do you want to be a part of this thing? And then for him to say no, because he doesn't know. It hadn't come out yet. Like he didn't know. And I just felt a little uncomfortable doing that. Now I think for Relay Volume 2, I would have no problem doing that. And I intend to if Peter asked me to. And I bet you Ka would say yes. So I bet you he would. I bet you he would. If on the strength of how much we've adored him. As far as mystique, I don't think Ka's doing anything wrong. Whatever he's doing. I want him to keep doing it. I don't even see it as mystique. I see it as he is totally in control, uncompromised, self-sufficient. Is this mystique, or is this a guy who just doesn't need to operate by any of the rules? And he proves that there are none. This is mystique? I don't know.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have to put himself out there like that, because that's not what his intention is. His intention is to do it and then move on to the next thing.
People are drawn to him. You know?
Yeah, because there's no gaze. He's free from those concerns. And because he's free from those concerns, he gets to just be and do, and people respond to it because we can all tell there's nothing pushing him in any direction but his own muse.
It's really, wild to think that And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure, you've thought about this as well, how you were able to build this relationship with somebody that a ton of people admire and yet know very little about. I would like refresh my timeline, leading up to or right after this, A Martyr's Reward release, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are listening to it, they're buying it on his website. Seems like somebody's gonna like shoot me if I criticize it at all. Like everybody is
Okay.
obsessed. People take it very seriously, I feel like, when they
Right.
speak about him.
Well, it's like, well, why? What's to criticize? You know, he's not even putting it out there for that. It's only for the people who understand it, or the people who can get off on it, or enjoy it, or find some insight into it. He's not putting himself out there to be Pitchfork best new music or the 5.4 rating. Like, I'm sure they'll review it, but I don't really think he's concerned with any of that. He's has such a positive influence on the whole culture just doing what he's doing. He's not trying to do anything but what he's doing. So I see him as critic proof in that sense. Um, and any critic worth a grain of salt would be able to tell what he's doing. He's the only like person that you can really say is making art, you know, because he's not playing the game. That's what I've always admired about him. I mean, he gives me the inspiration to say, this is not something I'm dedicating my life to. This is not Kaz's main job. Everyone knows what Kaz's main job is.
Firefighter, yeah.
He's a firefighter. So he has more important things on his mind, yet he can still do this. Um, I don't know. I prefer that. It's coming from a more authentic place. I had to sacrifice my writing skills to the gods to make money and pay my rent.
Hmm.
It's not like it was. Thank God for music.
Right.
And as a result of that, I try and keep music very pure. Sometimes when there's money involved, I don't want to have anything to do with it. It makes me feel weird. And maybe I get that from Ka because I've always admired him.
As somebody who used to write about music, in your case, like, I definitely am curious to hear. I found this, like, this was a little while ago. It was some blog post about hallways. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it was like the 5 songs, and I want to read you this passage
Okay.
that they wrote about it because I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But I definitely, I wanted to see your reaction to it. But okay. The jazzy soundscape seems to possess a life of its own, but the power spitters still make it malleable to their whims. They bend and contort the arrangement with a full dose of supreme lyrical prowess until it willfully submits to their control.
I agree with that.
I thought it was so odd to say willfully submits to their control. That's the line that I was like, huh.
A lot of music critics are very young. And I'm friends with Paul Thompson. I've told him this. I think it's fine to use music criticism as a way to develop yourself as a writer. To develop how your voice, to develop your diction, to develop your ear, and how to write about what things sound like. It's really hard. Um, but I think it's just that. It's a good way to get better at writing.
Yeah.
And then but you should move on to something more serious, more constructive with your writing then, if you're that dedicated to it.
I want to also touch on a little bit your like the releases you've done just as Disco Vietnam. So you have
Okay.
there's this House Rabbi series.
Yes, those are my
Um,
beat tapes.
yeah, the beat tapes. Yeah. So and I've also noticed that your the Twitter username is Supernova Locks. So
Uh-huh.
I know you there seem to be like a lot of Jewish influences here.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
and
I
like
guess so.
Pimps as well. The track you produced on
Yeah.
the Zilla record. I definitely appreciate it. But yeah,
Yeah. I have to stay authentic
see
to
how
myself.
that yeah
Yeah.
see how that manifests.
Yeah, the House Rabbi tapes. That all came from a stupid joke. I wish I had thought about it more. I just heard a story that there was like for the House of Representatives, there's a House chaplain.
Yeah.
And so I just wondered to myself if there was a House rabbi.
The real late beats, of course. Obviously impressive names over those, but is there anybody else you'd like to see um, over Disco Vietnam production, in your life?
Everyone knows the answer to this. It's Method Man.
Hmm.
That's my hero.
When you say everyone, like, do you talk about this a lot then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows me knows I'm putting the word out. I want to work with Method Man, the greatest rapper of all time.
There you go, plain and
If
simple.
you know Method Man, let
Okay.
him know Disco Vietnam's looking for him. He's like the voice in my head. Like when I finish a beat, if I can imagine him on it, then it's done. It's like that.
Yeah.
He's like a North Star. Everyone has a file on their computer that says Ghostface beat or like Most Def beat. All mine are just Method Man beats.
Yeah, real producer stuff. Definitely.
Jay-Z beat.
Yeah.
I'm saving this for Hove.
Yeah, just in case.
Just in case he calls.
Thank you so much for coming on, Barry. I really appreciate it. I definitely, I've had a lot of thoughts on Real Late, and I'm glad I was able to get somebody, who made a real impact on the record. So
I tried to get Kenny on the podcast with me, but he's busy. It would have been helpful to talk more about Real Late. But I'm really proud of it. Peter's really proud of it. We're both like so excited at the response to it. Our favorite thing is when people are like, I don't fucks with Rosenberg, but this album is fire.
I've heard a lot of people say that.
That's fine. That's fine by us. We really appreciate that too.
Yeah, that's like the in spite of it, right?
And he even said so. He's like, this is the most positive reception I've gotten to anything I've ever done. It's like, I'll take it.
It's been yeah.
He earned it though. I will say, Peter earned it. Peter's earned everything. And if anyone isn't sure about that, it's true.
You've got the cold hard facts.
I've had a front row seat.
Back it up.
Yeah. He never gave up. That's why he's where he is.
Disco Vietnam on the Real Ones podcast. Thank you again for joining this episode brought to you by Project Philo. I've been your host, Ben Moscow. Knocked it out of the park, Barry.